Good morning and welcome back to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. Let's take a few moments to connect and settle in. Take a deep breath through your nose. Hold it for a second or two. Feel your shoulders, feel your back and your neck, and release your breath. And release all the tension that you might be experiencing in your body as you do that. Let's take another deep breath in and hold it. And as you release that breath, allow yourself to just relax. Welcome. Good morning. Good morning, Dido. Good morning, Sue. I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you. Let's place our palms gently together. And softly rub your fingers against your palms. Feel your fingertips. Feel your palms. Feel the tickle of that, and allow yourself to become present and focused and here right now in your body. Welcome. Today, I would like to speak about overwhelm because I'm very grateful. It used to be something that I experienced on regular occasion, but now, fortunately, it's a rare experience. But I woke up with an experience. I actually went to bed with an experience of a bit of overwhelm and woke up that way. And so it had me looking at what is it and how can we contend with it and balance it. I think that especially in these times, it's probably a really relevant topic. So what is overwhelm? And I guess there's a mental overwhelm and there's an emotional overwhelm, and there's not necessarily a clear separation. But what the experience of overwhelm is for me, and I imagine it is for you on occasion as well, is sort of a frenzied pattern of thought where I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I have this, and it's exacerbated by an internal conversation that is creating urgency, and by piling one thing on top of the other, it feels more frenzied and you feel more tense and it feels like things are going faster. And the question is, what do we do to address that? And it may seem counterintuitive when there's so much that demands your attention and so much to do. It may seem counterintuitive to slow down, but that is the antidote, is to just slow down and stop. And the value of being able to slow down and stop is that it enables a perspective to start finding true priorities. But you can't do that from a state of frenzied activity. So by slowing down, making yourself present in the moment, stopping, taking a few breaths, relaxing, which is, I understand in the face of overwhelm, it's a little challenging or counter intuitive to just relax, but that's where our resourcefulness comes from. That's where our sense of presence comes from, is if we can just relax into our body, just be present. And the truth is, we can do one thing at a time. So there's also a lot of internal conversation that works with overwhelm, like self-talk, that could be potentially quite negative and damaging and even destructive. So let's look at the self-talk that we have in these moments of overwhelm. And one of the things that I was gifted with through training that I took from an organization in the Philadelphia area called Next Level. It's an emotional intelligence training. It's wonderful, profound, transformational. One of the things that was just a very simple and elegant transformation was to move from the verbiage, I have to do this, I have to do that, to I get to do this, I get to do that. And what that transformation creates is I it's a sense of privilege in having the opportunity to do all these things, to be presented with all these things. There's sort of an innate sense of appreciation about it. And then you can transform that to an even further level by rewording your internal dialogue to, I am blessed to. So I'm blessed to take care of my bills. How about that? I'm blessed to be able to do that, to be in a position to to take care of my life. I'm blessed to have so much abundance. And what is overwhelm? It's when there's a lot of input, either internal rotary kind of input or external world demands. And by slowing down and connecting to the blessing of the opportunity, this is something I talk about a lot, is what is the opportunity? So one of it's either Dido or Sue is saying, to move from have to get to bless to. I'm going to try that today. That's actually today's invitation, because it is life altering. If you can really connect to feeling that blessing, it it it's it creates a fundamental shift, which is really quite remarkable because it's so simple. And the other thing in terms of transformational vocabulary that's really effective is to move from the notion of overwhelm to abundance. There's an abundance of opportunities and requests in my life calling me forward into the things that I get to do today. That I get to do, that I'm blessed to do. So I think last of these 3 tips would be to just, after centering, after slowing down, after taking a moment to breathe and come back to your presence in your body, and feeling your body is a really good way to sort of stop some of that noise, putting your attention on what's happening physically, because the mind wants to run like a squirrel or a hamster on a wheel. The last piece is to just focus on one thing at a time, because we can't do more than one thing at a time. So what is possible, and what has helped me also, is to write down the things that are in my brain that are competing for my attention. And when I have them on paper or on the computer, then I can look at them and say, okay, what's my priority here? And what's interesting is that as you take priorities and put your focus on that thing when you're doing that thing, the overwhelm dissipates. And what happens is that you're more productive, because you're able to put concerted action and attention where it's going to have a result. So uh, the foundation of overwhelm is trying to go into many directions all at once. And that's paralyzing, because you're trying to go left and right and forward and back all at the same time, which means you end up not being able to move. So the idea is, find your center and then choose a direction and address things one by one by one, at the very least, especially in cases of extreme overwhelm, 1 foot in front of the other, 1 step at a time, is the way to handle it. And actually, I'm thinking about the parallel between this and addressing emotional overwhelm. This is a time of great emotion for many, many folks. And what we want to do is find ways to tap into our resourcefulness. And so with emotional overwhelm, it's really not dissimilar. What we want to do is find a place to be present to the foundation feeling, and to actually stop, and instead of resisting it, experience it. The resistance creates a greater tension between your existing emotion and you're trying to fight it off. So with grief, what I have experienced and what I have noticed to be very effective is to take 1 minute at a time. In this minute, how am I? In this minute, I can deal with this minute. I can deal with this minute, even if it's second by second, to move forward through the emotion and the circumstance, and to be present in that moment instead of trying to project it out into a future that is unknown, that serves to uh, intensify potentially the experience. So emotional overwhelm, two particular ways to interact with that is first to be present with it and to stop expending all this energy to try and avoid it. Just be present to it, sit into it, breathe into it, find it in your body. And this is kind of a miracle process. And I have my theories as to why it works, because emotion is energy, and there are energetic patterns in our bodies. And when we have deep emotion, what our experience is, or what our tendency is often to do, is to brace against that experience, to tense and brace and create a resistance around really feeling it, to try and make it go away, to try and tamp it down. And that's adding energy to that already existing energy, and it sort of locks it in. Plus it depletes us because it's so intensive in its demands. So by allowing ourselves the gift of really experiencing the grief when you're experiencing it, experience the overwhelm when you're experiencing it. And what I mean about this is a distinction from feeling the feeling, between feeling the feeling and thinking the story, or the internal dialogue that, or monologue, that is going on, that is accelerating that experience of the emotion. So feel the feeling, identify where it is in your body, and here's where the magic comes in. As you notice where it is in your body, observe it rather than trying to act on it and make it go away, or trying to force it. Allow yourself to observe it and be present to it and watch it move and breathe into it. And the idea here is to do so without judgment, because one of the things that accelerates any form of overwhelm is judging ourselves about feeling the feelings we're feeling, or um, judging ourselves for not being able to do everything we're blessed to be able to do. So when we release that resistance and allow ourselves to be present, and present without judgment, we allow the space for that emotion or that experience to dissipate. And it may sound crazy, it may sound counterintuitive, but I have observed this for more than 30 years in the core connection work that I do. What we're doing is being present to the manifestation of the emotion in the physical body. And as we're present to it, without judgment, just observing it and watching it. And sometimes it takes a while to just breathe through it and be present and connect to it and not identify with it, but observe it. It will dissipate. It will move. The sensations will move through your body. The emotion will morph into other emotions. I have so often seen, for instance, grief turn to anger or rage or disappointment, and back to sadness. And then what's amazing is that it can transmute very naturally to a sense of freedom and relief. And it's not logical. Emotions are energy, they are not logical. And we can generate them by the way that we think and the way we focus our attention. But the the emotions themselves are energy. And they do show up energetically in your body. If you tune in, you can find it. Like if you feel sad, where is that sadness in your body? Touch into it, allow yourself to be present to it without the mental stories about it, and breathe into it and watch it, and imagine it had a color or a shape, and allow yourself to watch what happens as you recognize its appearance and how it might change. And it feels oftentimes like a flight of imagination and fancy, like you're making all this stuff up that you're imagining about this feeling. But it's a way for your other than conscious awareness to communicate with you more deeply. And working, thank you, Dido or Sue, working with emotions is working with energy. And we all have that capability. So, what we want to do is first bring ourselves present, quiet our conversation about it, or if it's still going, just know that it's going to go and you don't have to pay attention to it. And release the judgment, which is resistance, which compounds that compaction of energy, and then observe that emotional energy in your body as it moves. And this actually is such a powerful technique. I have had the occasion to use it on physical injuries as well. Because really, what are we? We're spirit, we're energy. We're not truly physical beings. And if you want to play with that, I had twisted my ankle on a walk pretty badly. I had fallen, and some people stopped and helped me up, and I was far from my home. I had walked a distance, and I sat for it might have been 40 minutes, but I sat and allowed myself to experience the pain in my ankle. And what was really interesting is that it got worse as I was experiencing it. It became almost excruciating at one point, and I just breathed into it. I just made myself present to it. I just allowed myself to feel it and experience it. And the remarkable thing is that it disappeared. It disappeared, and I was able to walk home. I wouldn't have run a marathon, but I was able to walk home without limping. It was rather miraculous. So this is a key to something that we all have the opportunity to explore. It works on a physical level, it works on an emotional level, and it is a way that we can connect with ourselves as energy. What needs to happen for it to work is to release the impatience and the judgment and just breathe and be present. And so this was talking about overwhelm and how to release and move beyond it. And it's a sort of a 3-step, just to review. First is become present. Second is observe. And the third is put one foot in front of the other, is the easiest way to go about it. So The invitation today, and there was transformative language to recognize I get to instead of I have to, and then I'm blessed to deal with this abundance of input in life. So thank you so much for joining me. This is The Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin, and we're here on Enlightened World Network. Please be sure to check out the other amazing programming on Enlightened World, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining me.